Film distribution describes everything that happens in between production and exhibition. Major studios generally have their own distributions office in all major territories. By contrast, independent producers sell their films to different distributors in each territory. Filmmakers fortunate enough to receive distribution offers for their films are often confronted with complex deals to distribute their films. These can bewilder those unfamiliar with the customs and practices of the industry. Let's begin with a discussion of international film sales. International sales agents are distributors, although they usually do not own a single theater, home video label, or television outlet. They are essentially distributors that license films to territory distributors or buyers. Territory distributors acquire rights to exhibit a film within their country, although sometimes they may license rights for several different countries. The sales agent not only licenses the films they represent, but also services their buyers by providing them with various materials and elements, including film and video masters, key art, photos, and trailers. An honest and competent sales agent can be extremely helpful to a filmmaker. Most filmmakers have no clue how to go about licensing their film, for instance, to a Turkish buyer, and what terms would be acceptable. Moreover, they don't even know who the buyers are in most territories. According to the latest Screen Digest MPA report, the international box office in 2015 was $27.2 billion, and domestic was $11.1 billion. International sales, or those outside of North America, grew 35% from 2007 to 2011. Revenue in North America, by comparison, increased a mere 6%. A cinema building spree helped fuel China's 34% growth in box office receipts over the past 5 years. By the end of 2015, the screen number was up about 4 times compared with 2010, at 31,627. With China and other rapidly developing territories building thousands of new theaters, this trend is expected to continue. Distributing and marketing American films to other countries is a game of deciphering aesthetics and culture. What appeals to one nation may turn off another. Europe prefers sex to shootouts, while Asia and the Middle East are wrapped by action and violence. Italians recoil at science fiction, Argentines drift toward the intellectual, Russians adore minions but are cool to interracial love stories. Race, politics, religion all factor into how films are packaged. Tapping into the fascinations of audiences from Beijing to Brussels is a high-stakes alchemy of language, allure, censorship, the style of a trailer, the background color of a poster, and the bankability of a star such as Nicolas Cage, who despite a declining career is still a good bet in Asia and Brazil. Recasting posters has become a surreal art form in some territories and is often indicative of racial prejudices and playing on established stars. In 2013, Italian marketers prominently displayed Brad Pitt on a poster for 12 Years a Slave. The marketing of Lone Survivor, the tale of U.S. soldiers pinned down by the Taliban in Afghanistan and starring Mark Wahlberg, had to be rebranded in Germany. It was a story of war and was a very patriotic U.S. approach, but in Europe, the distributor toned down the patriotism and made it into a thinking man's film. Translations of titles are an important and sometimes even funny point that distributors need to look closely at when working with international audiences. Some translations, when adapted to international audiences, turn into funnier and sometimes nonsense titles when translated into English. For example, did you know that the Brazilian title of the movie The Hangover is translated as "If You Drink, Don't Get Married"? The title of the Hitchcock classic Vertigo in Italy is translated as "The Woman Who Lived Twice." Spoiler alert. As for the future of international distribution, we must talk about China first and foremost. China has been the #1 territory among all the international theatrical marketplaces in 2015. In 2016, there was a single case that stood out, which was Warcraft by Legendary. The film was doing merely okay domestically, with a box office income of $47 million. However, it collected more than $200 million in China. What we've learned from Warcraft is the importance of working with Chinese or Chinese-owned production companies in terms of opening up the market. The reason we came up with this conclusion can be attributed to one key fact: the limited number of foreign film releases allowed in China annually. The state government allows an annual quota of 64 foreign films to be released in mainland China. And Warcraft belongs to a subgenre of foreign films imported into China called box office split films. According to a WTO agreement signed in 2012, the US side gets 25% of the box office income earned in Chinese market, and the annual quota of split films is 34. So how do the US films make sure they can be released in China where the money is? One shortcut is to follow Warcraft's steps and team up with a Chinese production company. Legendary has been acquired by Wanda Group, a Chinese-based corporation and also the world's largest cinema chain operator. Warcraft made its way into China and scored a bunch of money. Of course, Wanda didn't just pick a random project. It is highly aware of the popularity of Warcraft game series in China. It's safe to say that Warcraft is a film made specially for Chinese audiences. What's also made specially for Chinese audiences nowadays are something called tailored 3D versions of films. When Jason Bourne was released in China this year, it was reformatted into a 3D film. With director Paul Greengrass's famous handheld camera style, it didn't go well at all. But 3D is a huge trend in China, and it does mean higher ticket prices and therefore higher box office income. Then what about the rest of the international marketplaces? Does 3D still matter? While there's no denying that 3D has a significant impact on the industry, what exactly has that impact been, and what does it look like going forward internationally? In 2012, 41 movies had 3D attached to them. In 2013, 35 movies, and in 2014, just 28 movies involved 3D. Looking back at 2015, which saw a strong resurgence of the 3D format, 8 of the 10 highest grossing titles of the year were released in 3D. From Star Wars The Force Awakens and Jurassic World to Minions and The Martian, major 3D motion pictures were released throughout the entire calendar year. In fact, 5 separate films presented in 3D last year generated more than $1 billion each in box office revenue. There are now more than 74,500 3D-equipped screens and growing around the world. The sheer scale of that global footprint allows for enormous opportunities for studios, filmmakers, exhibitors, and audiences, all of whom continue to embrace 3D and the magic that the best of those experiences provide. Theaters are trying harder and harder to make the movie-going tradition something unique and special. Among their many different ventures is the increased use of the Imax format, which gives audiences the opportunity to have a truly immersive experience. As of June 2016, there were 1,102 Imax theaters in 69 countries. The countries with the biggest number of screens are China and Russia. On September 1st, 2016, the company announced plans to include virtual reality into the IMAX theater experience with the opening of a new VR center in Los Angeles using a new Star VR headset created by Acer. Also in September, 20th Century Fox and IMAX announced that they would, quote, be re-upping their existing long-term partnership, signing a multi-picture deal that includes such films as Maze Runner, The Death Cure, Predator, Alita Battle Angel, and an untitled Marvel film. All in all, in the future of international distribution, innovation of technology still matters, and cultural translation and adaptation continues to play an important role in global marketing.